Good evening and welcome to round 4 of the SSRI GT4 Championship Season 3. We've had an interesting 3 rounds so far with close championship battles starting to form in both of our race classes. In the pro class, Andrew Richardson took full advantage of the fact that his closest rivals had to miss out the last round at Barcelona to take a 50-point lead in the championship. But Aaron Walker, Leon Hopp and Regan Mitchell are now tied for second place with 90 points each. Over in the AM class, the fight is even closer with only 27 points between the 3 podium positions. A great showing from our very own Chris Hill last round out, combined with a post-race penalty for second-place driver Evan Yepfes, has brought Chris up to a third place in the championship, with newcomer Aaron Nom currently sitting on the top step. All this makes tonight's race even more exciting as we hit the halfway mark of the season with a visit to Snetterton Circuit in the northeast of England just outside Norfolk. Being a converted World War II RAF airfield, Snetterton is your typical tight, twisty British GT circuit, where overtaking is challenging to say the least. A lap around here is just under 3 miles long, with 8 corners, including the tight hairpin of Montreal and the infamously tricky off-camber right-hander of Bombhole. Joining me in the commentary booth for all the action is my GT4 partner in crime, Ryan Walker. Now, Ryan, the format for tonight's race is going to make for some interesting strategy calls depending on what the weather does. The race itself is only 50 minutes long with no mandatory stop requirements. Now, we know these GT4s are able to easily do a 50-minute race on a single tank of fuel, but it's a question of whether tyres will hold out that long and whether anyone picks up any early race damage that will determine if anyone will need to pit for new rubber or not. What are your thoughts on what we can expect to see with strategies tonight?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one because, like you say, there's no mandatory pit stop, but obviously, as you see at the moment in qualifying, it's there's no rain, there's no wet track by the looks of it. So qualifying at the moment, yeah, it's dry, but when it comes to the race, it's a bit of a weather game version of chess, if you like, because you could be starting in the wet, and then as the race goes on, it starts to dry out. So you've got a bit of a dilemma. What do you do? Do you try and stick it out in the wets and try and finish the race? But you could do that. But on the other hand, on a dry track with wet tyres, the tyres will just overheat and basically fall to pieces. So it's good to play havoc with strategy and what these drivers will do if they try and stick it out, or maybe if it starts in the dry and it starts to rain maybe towards the end of the race, say maybe the last 10 minutes or so, what do you do? Do you try and stick it out or take the gamble and try and stick wets on and take a bit of a risk basically? It's good to be an interesting one for sure.
And then I think the deciding factor for this race is who gets that tyre choice right. When with free practice this evening, just before we started qualifying, that practice started out wet and then transferred over to. It did stop racing, although the track did not get dry at any point. I think the driest it got was greasy. Looking at the track conditions now, track is being listed as fast and overcast, still quite cold, 19 degrees air temperature. Track temperature is 26, so there is the potential that the track might go to optimum, but in all honesty, I doubt it. There isn't any sun. We've only got 15 drivers on track, so not really enough cars going around to create too much of a dry line. So yeah, and I think flexibility and having a hybrid setup is probably going to be the best option for drivers tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I was about to move on to that point as well. I think it wouldn't surprise me if some of these drivers are maybe kind of have made a setup to handle in the dry, but also if it does start to rain slightly or rain completely, I think they've got a setup that can handle the wet conditions as well. So, but I think I've just got a feeling that some drivers they might have went one way or another with the setups, but what direction they've went with the setup remains to be seen.
I mean, from what I can tell from some of the lap times that we're showing from the midweek practice server, fastest time on there was a 2:00, so I suspect that there was very, very little dry running in those practice servers. So drivers are most likely coming into this race with the full expectation that there's going to be rain at some point. Now, we have had it in free practice before qualifying. Whether that's going to be all we're going to get, drivers just don't know. So I would suspect that if anyone is running a dry setup, it will probably be tweaked and maybe slightly compromised just to make sure that the cars aren't too twitchy, and what to kill them too much if it does start to rain mid-race.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about what cars could, if it does rain, what cars could be the one to have in the wet. I think the Porsche Cayman with its mid or rear engine, sorry, I think that could be a good advantage in the wet for when it comes to traction.
Yeah, I definitely do not envy Regan Mitchell in the Maserati. Handling that car on a dry track is challenging enough with the car having no traction control or ABS of any kind. In the wet, I wouldn't even attempt to get behind the wheel of that car. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how everyone does in terms of how their cars handle the variable conditions, and who has taken a slightly compromised setup, who's decided that okay, it's mid-season, let's take a gamble and try and go for a drier setup in the hopes that that they can earn some points, maybe get a little bit out of position if there's rain at odd points. So I think it's absolutely all up for grabs tonight, and I personally would be hesitant to choose or to call what's going to happen tonight. I think it's all up in the air and all depends on what happens with that weather in the next well, we'll find out sort of in the next 6 or 8 minutes or so. We've got just over 5 minutes left in qualifying now. Andrew Richardson sitting quite happily at the top of the timing tables, nearly a full second clear of Regan Mitchell in that Maserati. So Andrew Richardson in quite a commanding lead so far during qualifying.
Yeah, Richardson pretty much continuing off where he did at the last round, and yeah, currently in pole in qualifying. But Regan Mitchell's one of those people, especially when it comes to the Maserati, even though it's not got any of the gizmos that you'd get on the Cayman or Aston Martin or any other GT4 car. It's he's somehow, some way, he's always able to, basically get good results out of this car, the Maserati as well. But as he gets a bit of a sideways moment on the exit of the final corner, yeah, he's been doing a good job with the Maserati. So keep an eye on Regan.
Definitely. And we've got a newcomer to the championship tonight in the form of Patrick Prince from Snack and Sons Racing. He competes in a lot of our endurance races. And he's decided to come in mid-season to the GT4 championship and see how he gets on. So in that 275 Porsche Cayman for Snack and Sons Racing. So really like the purple and yellow livery combination there.
Absolutely. So good to see Patrick in the series as well, and yeah, doing a good job in sixth position at the moment. And just looking at the other cars on track as well. Patrick Tractors, they currently on pole position in class with Evan Netvis second, and also our very own Chris Hill in third as well. So yeah, good to see Chris doing well qualifying, and hopefully he can get another podium result here tonight as well. And yeah, just regarding the turnout, it's a bit sad not to see a big turnout around here, because I find from my experience that Snetterton is a really, really fun track. It's got a bit of everything. It's got slow speed, medium speed, and high speed corners as well. It's a technical track.
It is, yeah. I mean, when we were obviously chatting and off air, and this is one of my nemesis tracks. It seems that every single time I come to Snetterton to race, something goes wrong. I either have a catastrophic race and I end up last like 5 million laps down, or the only technical failure, hardware failure that I've had during a race happened at Snetterton. So it's one of my tracks that I dread. I do not race very well around here, but it is fascinating to watch, and like you said, it's got a little bit of everything. It's got that long Bentley straight along the back end of the circuit, a really, really tight, slow hairpin at Montreal, and then the fast corners of Bombhole and Coram. So it's got a little bit of everything, but it is one of those tracks that qualifying does mean a lot. Overtaking around here is a challenge. It's not impossible, but you've got to be brave to be able to get overtakes done here cleanly.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say as well, it is kind of difficult to make moves around here because it's not really. It's a tight track as well. I think. Look at the corners on the track map. I think your best opportunities is probably the exit of turn 1 Ritchie's and then heading into that Montreal. If you get a good run in the exit of turn 1, you could possibly make a move into that turn 2 hairpin into Montreal. But apart from that, the only other passing opportunity is heading down that Bentley straight, heading down to Nelson. If you can get a good run down there and get a good run on someone, you could possibly make a move. But I think most of the time it requires the driver in front of you to make a mistake.
Yeah, it does. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting race. When again we've got no idea what the weather's going to be. Track is still showing in as fast. So even after a full 20-minute qualifying of all cars being out on track. And there being no actual, rain falling, track conditions still haven't improved. So, it just goes to show that the track conditions are going to play a major factor here in tonight's race. And we're just clicked over to then the end of qualifying, just on board with Evan Yetvis, who, according to my timing screen, I don't think is improving. And we're just coming up to Aaron Walker, currently 0.3 up on his time. This could be, if he can hold everything together. It might be enough to get him second place, but I don't think so. Unless he gets a really, really great run out of that final corner. So he just comes up to the line. And he does improve, but unfortunately doesn't improve his position to Aaron Walker coming in third place. We just jump on board with Bas van Mellis. Also 0.3 up on his current time, and this will, if he does hold on to those 0.3, this will give him a position, pipping Patrick Prince if he does hold on to this. Just coming through Bombhole now into Coram. My timing screen showing that he's still keeping that 0.3, although didn't get a very good exit out of Coram. So fortunately crosses the line and doesn't improve. So unfortunately a bad exit there out of then the last corner for Bass there. So, I am not going to put you on the spot tonight, Ryan, and ask you for your predictions. But I am going to ask, what do you think the weather's going to do? Because this is a complete and utter gamble. Heads or tails? Dry start or wet start?
It's a tough one, but I think it's going to be a dry start. But I think it's just something in the back of my mind is going to say that something's going to happen during the race, and that the rain could mix the race up and could play a factor in who wins this race.
And we've just jumped over to the race server. And dry at the minute. Rain forecasted for 10 minutes, increasing throughout the race up to the 30-minute mark. So, if you're sat in the cockpit right now, what are you doing to your setup? If you see that weather prediction on the grid, dry for 10, but then it's going to start raining, and that rain getting heavier, you going to start with wets and hope that you can get those wets to survive 10 minutes and 10-15 minutes of dry running, or are you going to go for dries and pit? What would you do?
So that's a difficult one. It's one of those things you kind of, I guess you want to start in the wets, but the only thing is with the rain not being due until for the next maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes even. It's one of those things. The downside of starting wets is on a dry track, they'll just burn up, and yeah, your wet tires might be shot. But on the other hand, it's if you're further back in the field, so I guess it's worth taking a risk and maybe starting on the wets. And if everyone else is starting on the dry tires, then you're in a way you've got that advantage because you're on the wet tires, and everyone else might need to dive in for wets.
Yeah, don't know. I mean, this is a really, really tough call, and I think this is just going to throw an absolute cat amongst the pigeons, and whoever gets this right is going to capitalize. Whoever gets it wrong is going to suffer. And yeah, I mean, it would be different if there was a mandatory pit stop. And hang on a minute, am I just seeing on the cameras, is it actually started to rain now?
Yeah, I was just about to say, is it just me, or can I see, say, some slight or little drops of rain, like spitting?
Yeah. I mean, that could change things again. So, yeah, I mean, this I think is probably the toughest decision that a sim racer has to make. Is you sat on the grid, you've got the countdown, clicking down in front of you, and it's that indecision. Do you change? Do you not change? What setup do you go for? What tires do you go for? So yeah, this is the hardest part of sim racing, is being able to make decisions like this on the fly, not really knowing what is going to happen any more than 30 minutes down the road. And with the variable conditions that Kunos have programmed into ACC, just because the forecast is saying that the rain's going to get heavier in 30 minutes, that can still change. So yeah, extremely difficult to get this sort of decision right. But while we wait for the cars to head out on their formation lap, let's just do a quick rundown of your starting grid. So, on row 1, Andrew Richardson lining up alongside Regan Mitchell in P2. Behind them, we've got Aaron Walker, followed by Frank Hopp. On row 3, Patrick Prince alongside Bas Van Millis. Row 4, Patrick Tractor and Armin Num in our AM class. Then we've got Chris Hill alongside Evan Yepvis. And then we've got Dennis Workman and Tim Nybor, two pro drivers that seem to be a bit out of position. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage to work their way through the four AM drivers and ahead of them. Then we've followed up by Wouter Vrins and Jan Palm Eikelenboom. And on the back row, we've got Michael Tyler in P15. So, now that they are actually heading out on their formation lap, as you can see, demonstration of what I was saying earlier, the weather forecast has changed. So it is raining now, and that rain is set to increase in 10 minutes and continue increasing up to 30 minutes. So if people were sat on the grid and they had enough time before they had to click drive, you'd be stupid not to go onto wet tires, I think.
Yeah, so I think if you're starting on the dry tires at this point, you're pretty much at a disadvantage because you're not going to have any heat in your in the dry tires, and you're pretty much going to have to tiptoe around. But if you're on the dry tires, like I think maybe some of the people further back in the grid might be on. If you're on the wet tires, sorry, you might be. You could be a good advantage because everyone's on dry tires, and you can just pretty much just drive by them.
Yeah, and you know, when we first came into the race server, track conditions were showing us fast. They've already clicked over to greasy. Now, just as I'm speaking, they've just clicked over to damp. So I would expect that by at least the end of lap 1, maybe even sooner, I wouldn't be too surprised if the track goes to full wet. So, yeah, and anyone who didn't have the opportunity to do that quick switch over to wet tires, if somebody was thinking of gambling with dries in the start, they are probably now sitting there thinking to themselves, oh crap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the track being damp now, I think the track's just going to get wetter and wetter now. So I think lap 1 could possibly tell who's on dry tires just by what's in the body language of the car. Are they having to slow up more than usual before some of these corners and maybe just having to tiptoe around? I think this race it'll be interesting for sure. Can Andrew Richardson pull away and try and build up a bit of a gap, or we have to tiptoe around possibly with being on dry tires? That's just about to be answered on lap 1.
Yeah, just thinking back to any wet races we had last season, and I seem to remember both Andrew Richardson and Aaron Walker being very handy in the wet. So, you know, and I don't think the wet conditions are going to give any particular advantage to any of our Pro Class Championship front runners. But it could definitely be an advantage to some of the midfield. You know, when we've still got, you know, some really tight battles all the way down the field. We've got quite a close set of. And when we just seen the green flag drop, everyone has made it through to turn 1 cleanly. As we're just coming up to the hairpin of Montreal, and you know, I'm not seeing any yellow behind. So then this is looking like a great start, and everyone, you know, giving each other lots of space. Just seeing how then the track conditions are actually panning out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been over clean. So what was I saying that? Oh, someone's going off. Whoa.
I think that was Evan Yepfis. I mean, that looked like he just completely and utterly missed his. I mean, that's not even a miss of your braking zone. That's just ignoring braking zones completely and utterly. But I'm not sure what happened there.
Looks like Baz Van Melis has went off as well. So maybe I don't know if Evan Netfis is on the dry tyres, because the way that car was just flying across the grass, or basically was flying across the track onto the grass. I think he might be on dry tyres possibly, just the way that car was skating across.
Yeah, just looking in the YouTube chat, Oliver Anderson has said that GT4s on dries can handle a lot of rain, but looked like it would be wet for the start if it was him. So I think, yeah, if anyone has managed to not get on to wet before the start, yeah, then they're going to really, really struggle.
Indeed, he's right on board with the Walter Vrins as well, heading into the final corner. Probably one of the trickiest corners to get right, because it's one of those in a way, the corner you're braking in, and all of a sudden you're having to turn. But it's also one of those corners that you've got to get right to try and carry that momentum down the home straight. But just looking at the track as well, it's still damp, but it's not heavy rain. But you can see the spray as the cars go across the line. It's definitely wet for sure, and damp as well. So I think some of these drivers just forgetting to readjust for the wet, because apparently according to Evan Netfis as well, maybe just missed his braking points, and they completely forgot that in the wet. Is that Baz?
Yeah, that's Bas on off and again. So that does make me wonder if Bas. He's just returned to the pits. I'm wondering if Bas has had another technical failure. He did have some hardware problems earlier in the season, and I'm wondering if those gremlins have potentially creeped back into the system again. So quite unfortunate, but I hope we'll hear from him soon to find out what's happened.
Yeah, because I remember someone saying he spun around heading onto the back straight. It's like some drivers are finding it a little bit difficult to adjust to these wet conditions. But I was going to say, coming back to Baz, I think I remember last season at Watkins Glen, I think it was, he had that technical issue while he was in contention for a podium finish.
Mm. Yeah. So we just get in a replay of the start. And like I said, it was pretty clean of a start right through and until I think it was just coming off the Bentley Straight. So everything kept nice and clean there. But until Evan Netfis, who I think is just in the far left of your screen now. So we're seeing a drag race. Down to Brundle, between, I think that's Patrick Tractor, and I'm not sure who the blue car is, but as we see, and Evan Netfis then just missing his braking point. Amazingly, he didn't take anyone out with him.
Yeah, I'm gobsmacked. I'm amazed that he never wiped anyone out, because he was coming at rapid speed, and especially on wet grass as well, where you can't really do anything. You're pretty much just a passenger, and I think Evan probably had his heart in his mouth for a moment.
Yeah. So just getting confirmation in the YouTube chat, Bas has suffered a screen failure. We think it's loose cables. He had some new screens fitted, I think, just before this race, and potentially some of the cables sound like they might have come loose. So not good at all when your screen suddenly goes dark. And he did then the right thing, tried to get off track. I've had this exact same failure happen to me before, funny enough, on Snetterton, so it does make you wonder. But yeah, your screen goes completely dark, and you are completely at the mercy of hoping that everyone around you is going to be able to avoid you and not take anyone out. But thankfully, Bas was able to get that car off to the side of the track and able to get back to the pits before his car caused too many problems.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for Baz. I was wondering why he pulled over. He pulled over there, but yeah, it's unfortunate. But hopefully, manages to get that fixed for the next time out. But back up at the front, the two leaders are still together. Andrew Richardson, and it looks like Aaron Walker now. Regan Mitchell seems to have dropped back slightly. So the Maserati, he probably at a disadvantage because it doesn't have the traction control, or basically the stuff to help you out. Like both these cars have the KTM and the Porsche Cayman.
Yeah, so and just noticed that Aaron Walker has gotten past Regan Mitchell and currently sitting within the fastest lap then as well. Although interesting, the track is still showing as only being damp, so the rain not increasing quite as much as we expected, but it definitely going to be continuing at least for the next 30 minutes. As we're just seeing a replay of rejoin coming on, and just a tiny little touch to the front, and it looks like potentially Chris got caught up in the back of that as well, just having to go onto the grass, avoiding action.
So just watching most of the cars through throughout the field. It looks like I guess most of these drivers are on wet tyres now, or I think most of them must have started with wet tyres, because I think if you're on dry tyres, I think that's a bit of a silly move. But at the moment, to say it, apart from some incidents on the lap 1 or in the early stages of the race, it's been relatively clean, and it all seems to have settled down ever so slightly. Most of the field, it looks like they're starting to separate a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when we've got some tight battles going up and down then the grid, just looking at then the leaderboards. Aaron Walker very, very close behind Andrew Richardson, and we're just on board with Arwen Nam, who's got Patrick Tractor keeping him company in the Alpine, only 0.5 of a second back. And then just looking further down, Chris Hill starting to get close to Michael Tyler for contending for P10.
They're up back up at the front for the change to the lead, with Aaron Walker taking it from Andy Richardson. So it looks like Richardson's maybe made a mistake somewhere, and it's allowed Walker up into the lead.
Yeah, but he's definitely not going to let him get away. He's definitely keeping close proximity behind Aaron, just to his nose out a little bit, coming down then the Bentley Straight into Brundle, just to make sure that Aaron knows that he's not going to give up without a fight. As they just come up to Murray's now, coming round onto the start-finish straight. So we just go back and see how then the overtake happened, and Andrew Richardson just catching a little bit too much of that inside curb. Quite a number of these curbs have quite high sausages on the insides, and can quite easily throw in a car out of balance, as what we just saw with Andrew there, making the overtake quite easy for Aaron, as just catches a little bit of the paint on the inside of the curb again, and Andrew Richardson now falling back and giving Aaron quite a bit of breathing room to just be able to just relax up in P1 and take his time, keeping that KTM on the straight and narrow in these difficult conditions.
Yeah, but I'm very surprised that Richardson's struggling slightly. I thought the Kema would have been the car to have in these conditions, especially with the rear ends, and they help him when it comes to traction. But maybe Andrew's not comfortable in these conditions. Yeah,
like I said, I'm trying to remember back to last season and any wet races that we had. And I do remember Aaron being able to handle the wet quite well, and still the track only showing as damp, but that rain is scheduled to increase. But now when just seeing that the 30-minute prediction is for the rain to start easing off again, so got 38 minutes left in the race. It definitely looks like the race is going to be wet flag to flag. So just a question as to and how people manage then their fuel. Lap times are going to be, a lot slower. So I've made the mistake of not taking in enough fuel in a wet race. End up doing more laps in a wet race than dry. But Practic Tractor getting all kinds of out of shape. Once you get on that grass in this sort of conditions, very, very difficult to get back safely on track, but Patrick manages it, and currently dropping down to P9 with Michael Tyler coming up very, very quickly behind him.
Yeah, indeed, it looks like Patrick may have just caught a bit of the grass here, possibly, or maybe just caught the grass heading into the final corner, and it just caused him to lose it and go into the wall. So it looks like he might lose. Looks like Patrick might lose a position to Michael Tyler and the GT4 Aston Martin, and I think it's good. Patrick's managed to keep going again. I don't see any major signs of damage. Maybe just slightly cosmetic damage.
Yeah, it didn't look like he hit the wall too hard, and any contact that he did have with the wall was side on. So hopefully that's not going to affect too much on aerodynamics, it should just be fairly cosmetic. So we're just riding on board with the dash cam in Aaron Walker's KTM, and he said it's still got a comfortable lead over Andrew Richardson after he made that mistake a few laps ago, but about 1.3 seconds ahead. So Aaron should be able to just keep his head down and just be able to lap without worrying about too much about having to defend from Andrew just yet.
Indeed, and Walker's doing a good job of holding lead at the moment, but it looks like Richardson's managing to, or it looks like Richardson's starting to close that gap down again ever so slightly, and I think maybe Andrew Richardson was maybe just overdriving slightly just to try and keep up with Aaron.
Yeah, and simple mistake to make, just getting a wheel, just slightly in the wrong position and getting onto a much wetter part of the track. Just looking at their previous lap times, Richardson was 0.3 of a second faster on that previous lap, so he's definitely closing down the gap. So Aaron is going to have to keep one eye on his mirrors. But shouldn't have to worry about them defending and coming offline just yet.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. If people have started on wet tyres and they've maybe they'll try and nurse the car home and try and look after the wet tyres, but there's not much rain. But as you can see, there's you'll probably see some drivers maybe going offline, trying to use some of the wet patches offline to try and just cool the tyres down and try and look after them as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen that the track conditions have now clicked over to full wet. So, that definitely means that there is some standing water out there. And for those who, are potentially struggling with tire temperatures and pressures, there's definitely water around for them to go and cool those tires. I just saw Dennis Workman stationary momentarily there, just in between Riches and Montreal, and has now not even just returned to the pits, but has left the server completely. So I'm wondering if potentially he's also had a technical failure. Be interesting to find out after the race what happened there.
There's watching Chris come across the line, and he just wants to just look at the clock and how much time's remaining. About 32 minutes and 45 seconds. So amazingly, this race is absolutely flew by. And consider the Snetterton, it's you probably think it's a long track, but when you look at depending on what layout you use, when you look at the amount of corners on the track and the lap time they do around here, it's not really a long lap, but it's actually really, from my experience of racing around here, it absolutely flies by.
Yeah, I mean, in these conditions, people are doing sort of, between, see the spread last lap. We've got 2-minute 3s by the front runners and 2:07s by the back markers. So yeah, 2 minute and change lap times. That 50 minutes is going to go quite quickly, and with these conditions, something that that I've noticed, especially if you're running close with other drivers, is having to contend with the spray. You've just got to concentrate so much more that even with a shorter race, as we see Arwen Nam unfortunately catching that inside sausage curb at Nelson, similar to what put Andrew Richardson off, and yeah, lost a considerable amount of gap to Router Rins. This battle is currently for P1 in the AM class, so potentially a dangerous mistake from Arwen then. But he's managed to keep the damage to a minimum as they cross the line, and Router is half a second back.
Yeah, trying to get close enough to try and make a move, and this is the thing I like about ACC as well, where you see the spray kicker up there in front of him, and especially when it comes to races of really like heavy wetness and heavy rain, and when you're behind another car in the spray, it makes I do anyway find it a really good challenge of trying to spot your braking point and trying to basically not have any issues. But it was like someone in the background there was getting a bit sideways there. That was Evan Netvis by the looks of it, but manages to keep it on the track and still running in the top 3 in class, which is amazing considering you had that very, well, pretty much a rallycross style off on lap 1.
Yeah, I managed to make up quite a number of places from that off, but the fact that he managed to sail through an entire grid of traffic without hitting anyone or hitting the walls at the far end either, has meant that Evans gotten away with that with probably little to no damage, and has been able to come back quite well. Currently sitting in P8 overall, P3 in the AM Championship.
Indeed, as the battle comes around, there's a long right-hander, and that long right-hander just feels like you're turning right for basically a whole eternity, but forever, yeah. And it makes it difficult to set up for the final corner because you're turning right for a long time, and all of a sudden you've got to start braking and then turning at the same time, and it can throw you off slightly. But this is a battle for a. Looks like pretty much the class lead comes across the line. It looks like Evan Netfus has got the run heading down to Montreal corner. Can he get it slowed down enough to make the move? And I think he can.
This is brave.
This is brave stuff, yeah. especially when
very well done. Although Router gave consideration to doing then the cutback, but yeah, and Evan Netfus textbook move into a heavy braking zone, capitalizing on a very, very slight minor mistake than the corner before. So very, very well done. And just as we were watching that overtake, Bas Van Millis has jumped into the YouTube chat and explained that his USB controller pretty much stopped working, which meant everything would have stopped in that case. So his wheel would have died, probably pedals as well. So yeah, very, very lucky to be able to get the car off track and not kill anyone in the process. So yeah, very unfortunate. It's a shame to have to lose a driver to technical issues, but it's one of the interesting correlations between virtual sim racing and real life racing. Technical issues can happen in both styles of racing, and definitely makes things interesting for us spectators watching all of the action.
Indeed, as it looks like Evan runs wide slightly, and that might give Valter a chance to try and make a move into the final corner, but Evan manages to keep the line into the final corner and keeps the position, but it looks like Valter might have a run down the home straight, and it looks like one of the cars in front of into the pits. It looks like Arwen Nam.
That's Arwen Nam. Yeah.
So
this is interesting. So I would be curious as to whether this is for fuel, if this was an intended pit stop. I don't think this was a I don't think it said a pit stop for damage, but we think potentially for fuel. So if it's fuel, then it would have been planned right from the very beginning. So yeah, interesting choice. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on where Arwen comes back out. But that pretty much gives the AM class lead to Evan Yetvis. So P6 at an overall, P1 in AM class. After that first lap, sail off that we've been discussing, this is a fantastic result for Evan.
Yeah, absolutely. Considering the issues he had in lap 1, he's done a good job to get back up into the class lead, but he's still got Vrintz right behind him as well. So I'm interested to see if anyone else dives into the pits for new wet tyres. But honestly, if you're on wet tyres, I think it's maybe worth just sticking it out to the finish. But yeah, you might have to look after the tyres to make sure they make it to the end. But I think I don't know, especially this race as well. There's no mandatory pit stop, so you can go to the finish if you want. But you'll probably, if the wet tyres or the track starts drying up slightly and the wet tyres start to overheat slightly, you'll maybe need to look after them maybe in the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, I don't know if YouTube are potentially yanking my chain, but Herr Yanis has come into the YouTube chat saying that, yeah, Arwen doing Team Rocket to the moon strategy, starting on half a tank. Good strategy. It does mean that you're potentially quicker than cars around you, but he's also gone on to say that now he went on to dry tires. So if that is the case, that is a massive gamble with the track still being wet. Dangerous move if that is then the case. So be very interested to see what happens with Arwen over then the next couple of laps. Doesn't look like it's going to stop raining before then the end of the race. So if YouTube isn't just messing with me, and Arwen has actually gone onto onto dry tires. Sorry. Very, very intriguing decision, and I'd love to see how that ends up playing out.
Yeah. If he has switched to dry tires, that's a very risky move, and not one that I would do, especially when the track's pretty much wet. So
wet, yeah.
Is this battle for the lead between Walker and Richardson and starting to heat up now, and it just seems to be corner exit that Aaron seems to pull away ever so slightly. I think he's able to get a good exit and get on the power much better, but I think Richardson on the other hand might be maybe just playing a waiting game at the moment.
Right. So it has just been confirmed. Yanis is messing with me. Thank you very much, Yanis. Much appreciated. YouTube ban for life. But yeah, then this battle with Andrew Richardson, he's been slowly clawing back then the lap times, lap on lap, and especially that last lap. There was a good 0.5 difference between them, so it's why then this battle has come on quite quickly. And speaking of battles that has come on quite quickly, Chris and battling with Jan Paul Eikenboom for P10. Just giving a bit of a look up the inside coming into Montreal. Didn't quite have then the run. His next opportunity might be coming down the back of the Bentley Straight into Brundle, but he's going to have to stay in close proximity to pull that off. But definitely looking like he's definitely looking racy, and they're definitely giving Jan Paul lots and lots of things to think about, and making that Porsche quite big in his mirrors.
Yeah, indeed. Chris trying to look for a way to get by him, and it's come up now. It looks like Chris has got a run, but just can't get close enough. But as you see the spray there, it makes it pretty difficult to spot the braking point, and as it starts to break now, it's probably one of the most difficult things in ACC. It looks like Eichenblum runs a little bit wide there.
Yeah, that it definitely, feeling the pressure a little bit from Chris behind. As unfortunate, oh no, Chris just gets a little bit of a tire on the grass, coming out of bomb hole, and just goes for a little bit of rallycross. Manages to keep it on the straight and narrow. Gets the car back onto solid ground, not lost too much in the way of time, but he's going to have his work cut out for him to do again. As we head back up to the front of the grid, and this battle with Andrew Richardson and Aaron Walker. And I think then this is such an evenly matched battle. As you pointed out earlier, Aaron just seems to be able to get on the power just that little bit earlier, and Aaron flashing then the lights a little bit there for Arwen Num, not wanting to compromise that run. As we're just on board, just catching, going back with Chris, and it looks like he got just a little bit too greedy of the green paint. There's a strip of the red and white rumble strips, and then there's a strip of green paint before the grass starts. Those sections of paint can get treacherously slick in the wet, and you want to avoid them at all costs, for that very reason, that they can just spear a car off into the unknown with no warning whatsoever.
Indeed, this is right on board with Randy Richardson in second place, still trying to close up to the rear of Aaron Walker. As it looks like, actually, I say that Aaron gets a bit of a tank slapper and manages to hold it, but I think it's definitely proof that these wet conditions are definitely proven to be a bit of a challenge, as Richardson closes right up under braking and has to run a little bit wide there to avoid running into the back of Aaron. But yeah, a great race in between these two, and a great battle for the lead, and it just shows that both these guys, or both these drivers rather, are pushing each other. And I think Andrew's maybe just biding his time to see if there's any opportunity, because at the moment it looks like I was about to say, looks like Aaron was keeping a cool head and just doing what he needs to do, but as you just saw there, he got a bit of a tank slapper, so maybe just push it a little bit to try and keep that lead from Richardson, and also keep that slight gap.
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance of, you know, pushing hard enough to stay in front, but not pushing so hard that you're, you know, beyond the limits. But yeah, and I suspect that you know, then this battle is probably going to continue for the rest of the race. It does seem that Andrew is potentially better on the brakes, but Aaron seems to be able to get the power down just that little bit earlier than the Porsche. So it seems to be, you know, neck and neck, quite even throughout the laps. So I think it's potentially going to come down to somebody making a mistake.
Absolutely, and I think just watching at the moment, I think the person that looks like to make a mistake, just watching them, is Aaron Walker. It looks like Andrew Richardson's trying to, that's brave, trying to make a move on the outside into the Montreal hairpin, but again, Walker holds his nerve and manages to keep the lead. But Andrew Richardson now, I think he's pretty much decided now he's got to try and make a move if he gets an opportunity, and he's looking really racy now.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have, you know, battled with each other not just all this season, but yeah, just, you know, thinks about having a look up the inside, but you know, Aaron firmly shuts the door, forcing Andrew Richardson to well and truly back out of the move. But, and as I was saying, these two have battled with each other for a couple of seasons now, so, you know, they know each other really well. They know each other's driving style, and I genuinely think that they really enjoy battling with each other on track. They are so evenly matched, both excellent drivers. And yeah, it's just a joy to watch the two of these fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought when Richardson outbraked himself there into the second hairpin, I thought he was going to run into the back of Walker, because it looked like he did outbrake himself, but somehow managed to avoid an incident. And definitely, what's in that KTM? It's starting to slide around about now.
Yeah, I mean, and Andrew Richardson, when we spoke to him in post-race interviews last race, was saying that he was not looking forward to this. He doesn't enjoy Snetterton that much. But yeah, he's definitely doing a good job hanging on to the back of Aaron Walker, keeping the pressure on corner after corner after corner. And Aaron just makes a tiny little bit of a mistake, and it's now a drag race down into Montreal. Andrew Richardson manages to keep the inside, but Aaron going for the cutback. He is going to have the inside line coming into Augie's. But yeah, this is going to be close, but I think Andrew Richardson has got this move done, but is going to be under pressure. Oh, side by side through Agostini. This is just absolutely phenomenal racing, but Andrew Richardson keeping his cool. They're both giving each other tremendous amounts of respect and space on track. And tiniest little bit of a touch, kind of coming out of, I believe that was Williams, just coming down onto the Bentley straight. And yeah, Andrew Richardson looks like he's managed to pull enough of a gap down the straight that he should be safely in that P1 position now. But yeah, what a lap!
Yeah, that was fantastic stuff, and it was like Richardson's starting to pull away now, and I think I've noticed this a few times with Andrew Richardson in the past. If he's behind someone, he'll wait behind for pretty much wait behind for a while and just kind of plan what he's going to do. But I think this is a stage of the race now where he's just pretty much planned his move on Aaron now and starting to pull away. And I think that KTM as well. It's a fun car, but I think it's probably not got that. It's not got that same characteristics in the rain as it came in. And as we all know, Porsches when it comes to racing in the wet, especially in real life or in the virtual world, that Porsches seem to be the car to have just because of that rear engine helping with traction in the wet.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely, but something that people need to be mindful of is what their car choice is, and knowing car balance and everything like that. But then a lot of it is down to getting used to how a particular car drives. I know Aaron has a lot of experience behind that KTM. It does seem to be his GT4 of choice, and the Porsche just seems to be quite a relatively predictable car to get used to. Certainly the GT3 Porsche is a completely another story and can be a bit of a handful, but the GT4 Porsche seems to be relatively forgiving in terms of getting used to it and being able to drive it quickly. But then these two giving us just an absolute masterclass in defensive and offensive driving there for that battle for the P1 position. And just looking down the order, just sitting on board with Patrick Tractor, this seems to be the other close battle that we've got on track at the minute, and that is Router Vince up in front, currently about 0.8 of a second gap between them. This was for P2 in the AM class, P7 overall. Again, this has been another battle that's been brewing for a couple of laps now, and Patrick been just a little bit quicker on than the last lap, about 0.3 of a difference in their lap time last time out. And Patrick Tractor, and I think a little bit quicker than Router overall, certainly going by their best lap time of the race so far. There's about a 10th difference in Patrick Tractor's favour. But I've battled with Router Vince on track before. It's really great at positioning his car just to make overtaking as difficult as possible. So this is another battle that I think will be quite interesting as we just tick over into the final 10 minutes of this race.
Yeah, I was about to say, it wasn't too long ago. There was about 20 minutes left in this race. We've got about just under 10 minutes left in this race, so it's absolutely flew by. It looks like Tyler trying to make a bit of a move there on the icon bloom there. So I think he was kind of thinking about going for a move, but with it being a wet track, I think he didn't want to take any risk and risk wiping them both out, so decided to back out of it. But as you see there, they just running really wide onto that wet AstroTurf stuff there, and you don't want to run that too much, otherwise if you spin the wheels up on that wet part of the track, you're pretty much on a one-way trip into a spin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we've seen it a couple of times already, this race, it's one of the challenges racing in wet conditions, that you've got to adjust your driving style, and not just your driving style, but also your driving line as well. Can't take as much curb as you normally can in dry conditions, and you've got to be mindful of standing water on the sides of the track.
Indeed. Yeah, I thought Rich would have pulled away, but I think Aaron's doing a good job of trying to keep up. And I think it's one of those things I find from experience, when you make a move on someone that you're quicker than, you think, yeah, I can pull away now, but as soon as you get by, it's one of those things that you can't really make it. I thought Aaron was going to run into the back of Richardson there. That was very close. But yeah,
that was very close.
It's one of those things when you make a move on someone, you think you can pull away, but I don't know if it's a mindset thing, but as soon as you get by, someone's able to keep up with you. I don't know if it's maybe one of those things that if someone passes you, you use them to try and maybe extract more pace out of yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier to follow than it is to defend. It's something that I've seen time and time again when I've been commentating. Being able to look at lap times. Previously when Richardson was following Aaron, his lap times were quicker, and now that Aaron is the one who's playing follow the leader, his lap times are now quicker. It's only marginal, but it is easier to follow another car than it is to defend, because your concentration is split in looking forward to make sure that you do actually don't run off the track, but part of your attention is also behind, whereas with your following, all you're focused on is what's in front of you, not only the track but also the car that you're battling. So doesn't surprise me that Andrew Richardson hasn't been able to pull any sort of gap. Then these two drivers very, very evenly matched, and yeah, it is just that little bit easier to follow than it is to defend.
Absolutely. It's almost like Walker's trying to make a move with Richardson, tries to go for a bit of a switchback, but I think Richardson's wise to that, and they definitely keeps his composure. But as they've got about just under, pretty much 5 minutes and under 50 seconds left in the race, I think if I was Aaron, I would maybe just wait a little bit and maybe try and plan the move, where you're going to make it, or when you're going to make it, and where you're going to make it. Maybe just try and play a bit of mind games with Richardson and try and get him unsettled a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough ask. Andrew Richardson's a very, very experienced driver. He's used to being out in front, and is accustomed to being challenged and having to defend that top position. I think it's going to take a lot to get him to make a mistake, but anything can happen, and especially in these conditions when we've already seen drivers who are very, very experienced, very competent drivers making simple mistakes, taking just tiny bit too much curb. Especially catching that inside curb at Palmer, so where there's that big sausage curb. So yeah, it's all possible. We've still got 4.5 minutes left in this race. It does appear that I think it has stopped raining. Track has progressed to damp, but with only 4 minutes left in the race, I really don't think track conditions are going to make too much of a difference at this stage. But interesting to note that the conditions are now changing as Aaron goes for a bit of a dive up around the outside. Does mean that he's going to have the inside for the next turn, but just gets pushed in a little bit wide as a little bit of a slide that he's got to correct, and gives Richardson just a little bit of breathing room again.
Yeah, I think if I was Walker there, I would have backed off slightly and just tucked back in behind Richardson, but I think Aaron's realising now he's got to try and make a move and try and get Richardson offline at a part of the track that where Richardson doesn't expect it. But I think as we're just about to head up to the final corner, I think this could be, but it's either this could, we've got this lap and one more, I think, or 2 more laps, I think.
I think we're going to have two more. They're still just coming out of Coram now, not quite reached the final corner. So yeah, I think we've got 2 more laps before the checker flag actually falls. It'll be interesting to see what Aaron can do with those final 2 laps. They're definitely doing a great job of keeping Andrew Richardson under pressure. So yeah, it's definitely an edge of your seat racing, and I've got no doubt that Andrew Richardson behind the wheel of that Porsche is hoping and praying for that race timer to count down a little bit quicker than it is.
Indeed, and Aaron's trying to make a move on Andrew and definitely keeping up the pressure. It looks like I thought Andrew was going to run wide there, but I think Aaron's running out of time, and as it looks like Aaron tries to keep it tight and try and get a good exit, but again, just Andrew's doing a good job of keeping his composure and not letting the pressure get to him. But as they head up to this long run up to the bridge, it looks like Aaron's got a run, but it's just a case of trying to make that move, and he actually pulls out from the slipstream and tries to make a move, and just not. He gets close, but he's just not close enough to make the move, and it looks. Oh, that was a bit of a touchy moment.
Yeah, that was tight, but and Aaron managed to get the anchors on just in time, and prevented a bit of contact there. But then this battle is definitely going to go down to the wire. But I've got no doubt that Richardson is just counting down those seconds as they just come up to the start finish line. 30 seconds left to go, so they are now on their final lap, and it's definitely now or never for Aaron. That gap currently 0.6, but when we've seen just how different they are in terms of braking and acceleration. We've seen that Richardson much better on the brakes in that Porsche, but the KTM able to get the power down just that little bit quicker. So I think this is going to come down to the wire. If I'm going to step out onto a limb, I'm going to expect Andrew Richardson to keep the position, as unfortunately Patrick Prince just goes for a little bit of rallycross on the final lap, but he's got enough of a gap to Frank Hoppen. There was a little bit of contact, and Andrew Richardson manages to keep that Porsche on the straight and narrow. Aaron Walker not pushing not pushing that advantage too much. Is very clean, respectful driver that way. I know Aaron would not want to win in those circumstances, so just backed off a little bit, allowed Andrew Richardson to get the car collected up again. As we're just coming down into bomb hole at the minute, coming around to that long forever sweeping right-hander of Coram, and I think it's only the brave that goes for a move coming into Murray's, but little bit of contact, both of them going a little bit sideways. As they drag down to the start finish line, and Andrew Richardson taking that win from Aaron Walker, and Regan Mitchell following up behind in the Maserati. just coming in across the line now, and followed by Patrick Prince, newcomer to the championship, finishing in P4. Very, very great first showing out for Patrick there. And then we've got Frank Hopp and Evan Yepvis. Amazing recovery drive. We can see a little bit of damage on the front end of that Wild Things racing car. But yeah, and Evan doing a fantastic job to come home in the lead for the AM class, and manages to put Frank Hopp to a P5 overall as well. So fantastic recovery drive from Yepvis there, as Rouser Vince comes across the line in P7, P2 for the AM class, as he spears off out of shot, followed by Patrick Tractor and a Jan-Paul Eichenboom in the remaining Mercedes. So, very, very fascinating race. Lots and lots of great battles going on. Some interesting pit decisions. What was your highlight?
It wasn't the most exciting race, but I think looking back, that battle for the lead in the closing stages was definitely one to watch. And also another highlight was Evan Netvis' recovery after having that moment on lap 1, but great recovery to come back and win his class. And I think it was a good race overall, and the driving throughout the field was very respectful.
Yeah, I mean, considering that the changeable conditions, not really knowing, what situation was going to be facing then the drivers coming into then the final race lobby, I think everyone did an amazingly well. Really, really great, clean, respectful racing. And yeah, just a pleasure to watch. So we've got some drivers in for interview, so let's bring them in. And let's start with our P3 finisher, Regan Mitchell. How was that race for you, Regan?
Hello. It was just a bit frustrating and a bit boring. Just trying to survive,
And frustrating how?
Just not the most fun experience trying to keep this on the road. Yeah, no ABS in the wet is bad enough, but when half the corners have turns and braking zones at the same time, it's not too good.
Yeah, we were saying at the top of the broadcast that we do not envy you being in that car in these conditions. So with the jumping onto the grid then and seeing the conditions changing literally second by second, was there any panicked setup changes on the grid, or were you pretty much prepared for the wet weather to begin with?
This was kind of light rain, so I was a bit happy that if it was a 60% chance to rain anyway, so if it was going to be light rain, that was a lot easier for me to not die. But that was when I kind of knew it was best case scenario third, because I was nowhere near the Aaron and Andrew's times.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got our next round out at Imola coming up in 2 weeks' time. You looking forward to Imola? Is it a track that you enjoy?
It's okay. In the Maserati especially, it's got good and bad parts. It's more fun than here in the wet. I'm going to hope it's dry.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. So, thank you very much for joining us. Fantastic racing, and we look forward to seeing you out in Imola in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
And our P2 has has disappeared. Right, Andrew, there he is. It's just come back, just in time, Aaron. How are you?
Oh, great, Sam. Sorry, apologies. I was having some technical issues.
That's okay. There seems to be a lot of it going around tonight.
Well, I tell you what, I wish Andrew had some on track. That was an amazing race. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, we had a bit of door rubbing here and there. It was enjoyable. It was tough. It was very tough. The conditions weren't perfect, obviously. I enjoyed it though. I don't know what Andrew said. Hopefully, he doesn't mind those taps. I think we both dealt them out.
Well, we've not come to Andrew yet, so we'll see what he says in a minute. But so coming on to then the grid and seeing that the race win was going to be a wet start, were you prepared for that, or was there some a last minute setup tweaks as then the conditions were changing on the grid?
No, fairly prepared. I'd seen some posts from Regan about it being a wet race or a wet practice. I think I got on the server for the first time yesterday or maybe the day before. Did some wet laps today. I was quite prepared. To be honest, it was sort of to-ing and fro-ing because Regan was very quick in the dry. Obviously, he's going to struggle in the wet with no TC. So I was kind of hoping for a wet race because it not taking anything away from Regan, I knew he was going to struggle. So I knew it would be down to. I didn't think, to be honest, it would be as close between myself and Andrew. He's been really quick in everything I've seen. I wasn't expecting to have a race like that. So yeah, pleased it went how it did.
Fantastic. And are you looking forward to Imola next race out?
Not really. That's a long straight. That is a very, very long straight for the KTM. If there's anything like that, it's just I'll probably be at the back of the grid by the end of the race, I would have thought.
I highly doubt that.
I might pull 2 seconds through the twisties and then I'll lose 10 down that straight, I think. We'll see.
We definitely look forward to seeing how you get on, and thank you very much for giving us some amazing battles throughout the course of that race. It's been really, really great to watch.
Thank you, Sam.
Andrew, let's get your perspective on that battle with Aaron. How was then the race for you from your point of view?
The race was super tough, but it was so much fun. It was such a great battle with Aaron. As he said, we got into contact a couple of times, but no, it was all fair. Just good hard racing.
Hey, Andrew. Sorry to butt in. It was so much easier when you was behind following. I could keep up with Andrew. As soon as I was ahead, I was just struggling. I don't know if it was the same for you.
No, and it felt exactly the same. As soon as I got ahead, it just felt like someone had turned your grip on and turned mine off.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything. It was crazy.
No, well done.
Cheers.
We were actually commenting on that in the race while we were watching it, that when you guys changed positions, we did think, it is so much easier to follow than it is to defend, and it reflected in your lap times and as well. It's great to hear that you guys had the exact same feeling in the cars as we did looking at the telemetry. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's odd because it's so different. Normally in the rain, you don't want to be behind anyone because your visibility's, not as good. But for whatever reason today, it was a better place to be. I had too high I'll get my words out. I had too high tyre pressures. So I think when it got more wet, I then had more pace than Aaron, but I was behind him. And then as it was drying out towards the end, I don't know, I felt slower and slower and slower.
Yeah.
But then I think one lap from the end, I did the purple lap, and I thought it was the worst lap I'd done. So hopefully it was drying out quite quick.
Yeah. The track did click over to damp. I think with 2 laps left to go in the race. We noticed in the comms box that the conditions had clicked over. So if the race was longer, it definitely would have been quite interesting in terms of strategy. I'm assuming you were prepared for a wet race right from the beginning.
Yeah, I'd done some practice in the wet, so I'd got a reasonable setup, but I'd sort of prepared two setups, one for heavy rain and one for light rain, and I took the heavy rain one, even though it was light rain, so I'm not sure what I did there, but that's probably didn't help me, but no.
Yeah.
It turned out all right in the end, so.
And what about looking forward to the next race then at Imola? Do you enjoy Imola?
Imola's probably my favourite track.
Okay.
But the last time I did a race there in the Cayman, I got a drive-through. So it could go either way.
It could, yeah.
Hopefully it goes more towards the favourite track and less towards the drive-through, but we'll have to wait and see.
Right. Well, we definitely look forward to see which way it's going to go as well. So. And as I said to Aaron, thank you very much for giving us some amazing racing to watch tonight. It was an absolutely spectacular being able to call it. So thank you very much, guys. And we look forward to seeing you all out in Imola in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks. So, Ryan, Imola. I think that is going to be a interesting battle at Imola. It always seems to throw up some really, really interesting fights. Lots of places to overtake. But also, and as Andrew hinted at, quite easy to fall foul of track limits. So could be an interesting race out next race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Imola is one of my favourite tracks, and it's one of those, like you say, it's one of those tracks. It's so easy to run wide and get cut track warnings, and if you run wide too many times and get too many cut track warnings, you can get a drive through for that. So I think that's going to be something for the drivers to keep in mind for the next round in 2 weeks at Imola. And I think Imola as well, it's again, it's some parts of the track are difficult to overtake on, but I think overall it's a track that has produced great racing, and I think it should do the same for the next round of the GT4 series in 2 weeks' time, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see on screen, we've got our track calendar, our championship calendar for then the rest of the season. We've got round 5 coming up in 2 weeks' time on April the 4th at Imola, and that is going to be another short 50-minute race. So interesting to see how strategies play out, but 50 minutes is more than enough time to get a drive through around Imola. So still going to be interesting to keep an eye on those track limit warnings. And then we follow it up with Laguna Seca. And just clicking over to our GT3 series, next week we've got Monza coming up. I'm really looking forward to Monza. I unfortunately had to pull out of Laguna Seca due to a hand injury, but I'm pretty much on the mend, so looking forward to Monza next round out. And later this week, I believe we've got some racing with the SSRI Porsche Super Cup. And we are heading to Zandvoort on the 30th for round 5. And that's going to be a 20-minute followed by a 30-minute race. Quite an interesting track, Zandvoort. But one that I struggled to learn, but once I learned it, quite enjoyed it. So yeah, and lastly, for those of you who also play a bit of Race Room, we've got World Touring Car Championship coming up on 2 days' time, this coming Thursday at the Circuit Motorland Aragon. Not too sure where in the world that is, but that is for touring cars, and that will be streamed live on this coming Thursday. And And lots of championships going on with SSRI at the minute. We've also got our season 2 of our endurance series. Next round is going to be Mount Panorama. Always such a interesting track to do a endurance race. Definitely a race of attrition, especially being 10 hours long. So that is kicking off on April the 8th. So that's what, 2 weeks time? Week and a half? No, 2 weeks on April 8th. So that will definitely be a great race to watch if you are interested in endurance series. So that is it for us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us for a wet but interesting Snetterton, and we look forward to seeing you next round out at Imola. Thank you very much for joining. Be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Make sure that you hit that bell notification so that you can be updated on all of our live streams. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you later. Have a good one.